So we are sitting here with Julia Jones and Diane Hellman and myself, and we are talking about what is going on with Julia in her life as far as what God is showing her and what He's doing in her heart, and we are excited to talk with her today.
Yes.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Yay. Thanks. Yeah. So I guess that's my cue to talk.
That's your cue.
So I've kind of been in this place where I'm really trying to understand what it is to be completely rested, but also like hardworking and disciplined. Mm-hmm. So that's where I've been. And so just a little bit of like background for me. And people who know me will probably not be surprised to hear me say that I'm a little bit of a free spirit. So like being like regimented and disciplined, I always kind of was like, that is not something that I need. It felt very confining. It was not something that I really understood or related to, or it was not a strong suit for me. And even just like growing up, that was not how my family functioned, as far as like that there was structure and that there was a routine to our days, and just that was not something that we did. And I actually think that part of the reason that I'm in this place now is because one of my really good friends, he is very organized. Like he has like this is what I do in the morning, this is what I do, like, you know. Mm-hmm. and I've actually started to like value that about him. I used to kind of be like, oh, you're such a square. Yeah. But over time I started to value that more and more, and see like, and it started off, I guess, like at work, because like I like with my caseload and everything that I do at work, I've had to be more organized if I was going to get things done. And I was actually like, oh, I actually kind of like feeling like I know what I'm going to be doing, not just like tumbling through my day. Like, you know, I was like, what is this? Like, wow. Anyways, without getting too long-winded with that, so that's actually something that I've been looking at, is like, is it a bad thing to want to be like more disciplined, to be more pursuant? And I even think like when I was a little less mature, like, and I was just coming into this like sonship era, I had such freedom, and I was like, oh, I don't have to strive anymore, and I can just like rest. And there's definitely a place for that, and I'm not encouraging striving, but I definitely had like a time where I was like, I don't have to do anything and I'm still loved, and I was like so glorious. And now, like, still, I don't have to do anything and I'm loved. But I also am like, well, but I want to be the best me that I can be. Mm-hmm. And out of that love, I'm motivated to be a hard worker. So, and even like, I've been trying to like be mindful of like how I talk to myself, because I never used to describe myself as a hard worker. I almost used to like view myself as kind of like lazy, and like not capable of being that like person who works hard and, you know, that kind of thing. Those qualities that you see like people who are like on Instagram, like at the gym at like 5 a.m, and I was like always like, that will never be me. That is not my style. That is never. And I've now like tried to be like talking to myself more of like, no, I am a hard worker and I am capable of these things, and just finding what that looks like for me. So I've been talking for a long time now, but that's kind of like, and that's not all, because there's like so much to this, but.
So where did this start inside of you? Like, did the Lord just open this up for you, or did you have an experience, or like, where did this start? Because if you think about yourself that way a really long time, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, is this true? Like, am I industrious?
Ooh, industrious is such a fun word. You know, I don't know. I think part of it just came from like because I am such a dreamer. Like, I have so many things that I want to do. And I think that at some point it came together for me that I was like, well, if I have these things that I want to do, I actually need to have some sort of like get up and go to make it happen. And even like the discipline to like, when I don't feel like it, get up and go and make it happen. And again, just being completely honest, there are times still, but more so before, where like, if I didn't feel like doing something, I didn't do it. And that was just because that was never instilled in me, or I never cultivated that for myself.
Right.
Of like, if you don't want to do something, you still have to do it. Like, you know, like if that's, you know, like in pursuit of a long-term goal, like, you know, so I think that kind of just came together for me, is that I was going to have to actually like have days where I didn't want to do something if I actually wanted to have fruit. Like, you know,
Wow.
yeah. Like, yeah, to stop being such a baby. Like, and I say that, and I know that sounds harsh, and like, you know, but really I kind of have to like push through in that way. And some of it started even with like running, because I had started running a couple months ago now, and actually like going after work, even when I was tired, to go do it, I was like, wow, this actually like feels good. Like I like feel proud of myself, and I feel like I'm like awakening this piece of myself where I'm like capable. And I can be like those Instagram runners.
So in that moment that you're like, okay, I'd much rather just lay here and get, you know, just chill for a while, or get extra sleep, or whatever it is. Like, can you go through the thought process that enables you to say, nope, I'm getting out of bed right now, or I'm going to go do this thing right now? Like, just so others can maybe be helped with that.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know that I have this mastered, and I don't have all the answers, because I'm still in it. Because I really do think that it's a balance, and I still contend towards either like being like super gracious with myself and just like allowing myself to have time to rest, or even be lazy, or like being like so regimented that there's like no time to rest, and then I like collapse in on myself.
Right.
So I'm really like still pursuing like what it looks like for me to like, with all the demands that I have in my life, still being able to take some time to, if I just need to lay in bed for an extra couple minutes, do it.
Yeah. And I don't want to interrupt, but that I hear this all the time right now. Like, people are really, there's a lot of people that can relate to what you're saying, because I've been hearing it over and over, that people are getting really busy, and to be able to allow themselves to have that rest. I mean, the Father asks us to do that anyway, but to actually allow ourselves to have that is really, we have to have that. So it's really good that you're talking about that.
And the other thing that just occurred to me, like as you were talking, is something else that like the Lord has said to me, and He'll still say this to me sometimes. It's like when I like start to be like, oh, I'm so busy, He'll be like, really, are you? Like, what are you like what are you devoting your time to? And I think about like, and He's asked me to look, and like I've had to consider like, what is it that I want to accomplish with my day? Like, because there are certain things that I would want to be able to do and that I like to be able to do in my day, but like I've realized that part of like the discipline and the routine is that like I won't have time for everything, and and so I kind of have to like trim the fat.
Yeah.
And so one of those things was like, he was like, if you're really looking for like when you're going to have time to spend with me and read your Bible, because that's something else I've been like really wanting to do more of. He was like, are you going to stop spending time on social media then? Because that's like maybe like 15 minutes a day that you could swap. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not as busy as I like whine about. And maybe I need to be like, if I'm really actually truly saying that that's what I want, Lord, like if I'm saying I want to spend time with you, then, and I'm saying I'm so busy, like is Instagram really how I want to be like spending my time?
Right.
Like is that a busyness? Like is that an actual demand on my time?
Right.
And then like when I see that, I'm like, oh, yep, okay. And just like those little things where like, you get caught in like a rabbit trail of doing whatever, and then you perceive yourself to be busy. And I do this. Like I perceive myself to be busy, and then I'm like, but are you actually being intentional with your time? And the answer is usually no, because if I'm being intentional with my time, then there's time for the things that I need to do.
You said something really important earlier. You said, forget how you said it, but essentially you indicated that the reason you adopt this discipline in your life is because there's something you want, and it's something you're interested in or something you want to do, and so you realize it's not going to be part of your life unless you somehow pursue it. And I think that's really interesting, because we can look at discipline for discipline's sake. Like we almost worship at the idol of being busy or disciplined, without really looking at, where is this taking me? Like, what about the Lord's heart in me is being served by this thing? Like, is it actually producing more of his heart in me, or is it like just checking off all of these little mental shrines that I have? I'm busy and I'm disciplined and I've done all of this thing, and I've, and I think that's interesting. Like, I think discipline unto our own heart is maybe the whole thing, like not just discipline, and maybe not just knowing who we are, but partnering both of those things. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I really do think, and it's something I have to continually bring myself back to, is that I'm not doing this to earn love or approval. Like, that's not what this is about. I have that. And so I have to like remind myself, I'm like, Lord, like I'm not trying to pursue that. I am pursuing the Julia that you made me to be. And when I see Jesus, like, and how like he trained himself and he spent time with his Father, like I see that and I'm like, I want to model myself after that. He was fully himself, and he didn't strive, but he worked hard. He got up and he went and he healed people, and he did his business, and I just have been really trying to model myself after that, and that he was never trying to seek after something. It was just about like he was doing the work of his Father. And when I just think about it, like when I like, if I want to be able to, I think about anything, like, a job that you're doing, and it requires training and effort. And it's such a, hopefully this makes sense, but like, I think it can be the same way. Like, I think there's a value to that way of thinking that we have to be careful not to cast aside, of like, that you should read your Bible and spend time with the Lord. Like, I think that like in our freedom sometimes, or at least how I allowed myself to be, was that I didn't have to force myself to do those things anymore. And I say that, and it's not that I'm forcing myself to do anything. It's like the desire of my heart. But in this place, I'm like, no, I want to revisit those characteristics of like, the people who came before us, who were so devoted, and so that's something that I think about is like, how do I marry those two things together? Like being loved, not striving, not pursuing, but just wanting to be better.
Because you're loved.
And like out of an act of love for him. Like I want to, like, it's like, you know, you think about like a wife with their husband or something, like, you know, like wanting to like become a housemaker, you know, like homemaker, whatever, you know, like not because she has to, but because like she loves her husband so much that she wants to like learn how to make a good meal, and she wants to learn how to, you know, I guess that's what I would compare it to. So the other thing, and I have to remember where it was. I think it's Galatians. Hold on, I'm going the wrong way. So, because the other thing that kind of happens for me still is that I find myself thinking when I'm being punished that I'm being like persecuted. You know? Oh, it's going to bug me if I can't remember where this was. And I've read this verse so many times, so I'll take a minute. But and it's such a like a flesh orphan mentality. But again, it just goes back to like my own experiences, and maybe even like I think it's a cultural thing, that I never really expected to be punished. Or if I was being punished, it was not justified, and so I could just ignore it and like make my thoughts accordingly. And there's this verse that talks about Jesus actually like bringing punishment to the ones that he loves. Do you guys remember? Do you know what
the ones he loves, he disciplines?
Yeah.
Nope, never mind. Hebrews 12.
There it is.
Which I should have known because I've been reading Hebrews 12 like over and over. So, and actually the part I was talking about is verse 11. So it says, no discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It is painful. But afterward, there will be a quiet harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. So take a new grip with your tired hands and stand firm on your shaky legs. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Then those who follow you, though they are weak and lame, will not stumble and fall, but will become strong.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So I've actually been like pushing myself with that of recently with my job, because I get a lot of correction at my job, and I used to kind of like buck under that yoke and be like, oh, like, but I'm perfect. How dare you correct me? And I've actually had to like, I had this like written on a Post-it, and anytime my supervisor would meet with me, I would like carry it with me, like, because I was like, no matter what she has to say to you, you're going to submit to her as the rightful authority that you in your job right now, and you're going to harvest right living. You are going to learn this.
Wow.
And I just think that that's so important. Like, yeah, I just had to push myself to do that. And I still do, because I find that I can be rebellious. And then what am I learning from these experiences? And even if there's not something that she's sharing with me that I feel is accurate or applicable, maybe I can still just treat her with honor and receive it, and not just allow my spirit to be like enraged and seething. And
so while you were talking, I had this picture in my mind, and I know that your desire is to walk on water, like someday. And but I really feel like the Lord was showing me that you do that, like, because if you take that story of, he was looking at Jesus, but then, oh my gosh, I'm on water, like, and he gets afraid. Like, I feel like you are steady with the Lord, like you're looking at him, you are walking on that water, like, and you don't allow what's going on in your life to, like the fear of things to overtake you, to take you down. You stay steady and walking on that water. So I think that even though you're saying all those things, that maybe there's some hard things, but I've always seen you as very steady in the Lord and disciplined and all that you're saying. But I appreciate what you're sharing, because I know it's helping others to see that too. So
thank you.
One I want to ask is, you used a phrase earlier that I'm not doing this for lover approval. I already have that. Oh, Father, help me. I think I am the yin to your yang a little bit on this topic. Because I think I am learning that I have lover approval if I never do another thing as long as I live. So I want you to talk to me about what that is. Because I would have told you I knew that. But in the last few weeks, I have learned a lot about me. And I don't think I know it as well as I thought I did. So what would you tell me about a healthy awareness of lover approval, the love of our Father, our husband? And what would you say? Because I know the healthy form of apply my identity to perform a result. I don't know if I never do another thing, he'll love me.
Which the thing that I'm hearing, like, is almost like these are two facets of the Lord that are meant to be together, because the father and the mother, which the father is the one that will correct and push us, but then the mother is also the one that comforts and reminds us, like, you're mine. And I actually think I have a book for you. Nikki knows it. It's a book for toddlers.
It's amazing. You
have such an arsenal of incredible books.
And this might not be what you were like looking for when you asked me, but this is what came to mind, because for me, this is something that brought me home too. Because even though like I am one that I feel like I can rest in his love for me, I still have to remind myself of that. Like, I still have to remind myself how like incredible the love that is there. So recently I was just, looking at books like I do, and I came across these ones, and I just like knew I had to have them. And actually I was shopping for a baby shower, and the author is Nancy Tillman. It's a book for kids, but it's called Wherever You Are, My Love Will Find You. And so I bought this for a baby shower, and I read it, and I just wept. And then I read it again, and I wept, because every page I could just hear the Lord, like, this is my heart. It's a story of like a parent talking to a kid as they grow, and how their love will go with them. But I could just so see it, the Lord saying, like, when you're at work, when you're playing, whatever you're doing, I'm with you. And but there's a one page where I don't even know that I'm going to be able to capture this, but it talks about how there's bad days and when you strike out in baseball and and you think you've been bad. It says like, when you think that you've been bad, like, my love is still there. And I just soaked that in for the fact that, like, we can't forget that those times when we think, oh man, I really blew it. And then the story talks about how, like, the wind ruffles your hair and reminds you that that's the parent's love. And then that week at work, like, I was going places and I could just, like, hear the wind through the trees, and I was like, oh my gosh, you really are, like, here loving me when I feel like I'm not doing what I should be doing, when I feel like I'm falling short, when I'm punishing myself and you're not.
Right.
Even when, like, I know I've fallen short of what the standard is.
Right.
When I go back to him, it's always love. I guess the difference for me, and I hope this is somehow connected to what you were asking, is when so sometimes I think that I confuse my own voice or other thoughts in my head for the voice of the Lord. And I say that I confuse it, and I feel like I know the difference, but I have to, like, be mindful to intentional and aware of my thoughts. Mm-hmm. Because when I am going through my day and I'm not feeling like I'm doing what I should be doing, or I'm being critical of myself, or even critical of others, or if I'm hearing that, like, thought in my head, like, Julia, like, this is not who I made you to be, if I feel, like, embarrassed or ashamed, I know that's not my dad. Mm. Anytime that he brings correction, yeah, it can be uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, yep, you're right. But I never feel ashamed. He, like that, like, it actually frees me. Mm-hmm. So I also think that that's such an important piece, is not to allow myself to believe those other sounds are the sound of my dad. And the less I allow that, the more freedom there is. It actually brings me, like, I feel more loved, I feel more motivated, and my actions are less out of, like, I'm pursuing affection or I'm pursuing approval, and more out of, like, I know this relationship that we have, and together we've got this. Mm-hmm. And that's where, like, the best things happen. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm the most content. So just, like, bringing that of saying, like, no, I know the sound of my dad, and his sound is not, like, pushing me to be like, well, like, if you don't do this, then you're not my daughter. Mm-hmm. That's not, or, like, well, now you're a daughter and now you're not, like, right. Those things, like, no, it's always, that was decided. Right. Even, like, connected to what, Nikki, you were saying about how you view me as very consistent, it's good to hear, and it's also the truth, because, yeah, like, I can admit that there are times when, like, this week was one where I was just so tired that I did not accomplish much of what I was hoping to accomplish. But I also know that, like, the truth is still that I am a consistent daughter. The truth is that not one of us is perfect in that. And I think it's so important that we can be transparent about it and say, like, this is the absolute desire of my heart. Like, Lord, you are the absolute desire of my heart. And I want to pursue that every day. I want to pursue you. I want to be with you. But I just trust that he's going to bring me into that. Like, he wants that more than I do. Right. And so if I trust that and I know that, then there's grace for me to not be perfect or on my A game every single day, and to know that he'll kind of piece together my best desires to make it complete. So then we don't have to hide the fact that there are rough days there, and it's still in the context of this beautiful relationship, and it's still sonship, and it's still pursuing.
So can you tell us what you do, like just a little short description of what you do at your job? And have you been able to take what you've learned with what you're talking about and help those that you work with with that?
That's a good question. So I almost skipped ahead. So start with what you do, Julia. Okay. So I am a mental health counselor, and I work with children. And I actually work specifically with trauma. So when I say that, I work with kids who have pretty significant abuse, neglect, histories. So that's what I do. It's funny because you're asking, well, how can I help my kids with that? The answer is yes, because sometimes it's easier to help other people with that than it is with myself.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
But also, I can only imagine that this process that I'm in will better serve not just them, but everybody in my life, because the more grace and the growth that I have within myself, the more there is for other people. But you asked, how do I help them with that? Or
Just
are you
able to? Yeah.
I would imagine a lot of those kids are absent of both features, both knowing that they're completely, irreversibly, forever loved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And having any sense that they can employ themselves toward the thing in their heart, that they can go after it.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a empty spot for anybody.
Yeah.
Imagine a child feeling that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be able to give you the answer you want with that one, because that is, Diane's right, that's more tricky for the kids that I work with.
Yeah. I think you being yourself enables them to see the Father's love through that. You know what I mean? And that what radiates from you, they can receive that. And maybe they can't pinpoint it and say, oh, that's God just yet. But I feel like as you work with them, that they are able to feel the Father's love through that.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that one of my supervisors told me once is that, if nothing else, the experience of having a safe adult is restorative. So I think that does connect, Nikki, because of all the things that I do in my role, I do have to offer correction and consequences, but I can also do my very best to do it from a place of this is for your growth. This is for you to learn and be safe.
No shame.
Yeah.
And so I do try to tell them, even in moments where they've made a bad decision and we have to talk it through, to say, we're still in this together. We're still working on the things that we're going to work on. But yeah, you made a bad choice here. What can you do differently next time? And even to say, these are the things that I really like about you. These are the things that I know about you that are good, and this was not a reflection of that. I know that you are capable of better. And the reason that I'm pushing you, and the reason that we're having this conversation is right now is so that you can do the better that I see in you. That's what I want. That's what we want. If I didn't think that you were capable of better, I would just let you sit in this mess. But because we want you to be safe, and we want you to be kind, and we want you to be respectful, we're going to push.
Yeah. You have a trip coming up, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that the little bit of amazingness that happened just recently for you for that?
Oh gosh.
I'm
I don't know this story. Tell me the story.
Oh my gosh, Nikki. Okay. Which actually, now that if I'm going to tell this story, you're going to hear my whole tangent about it, and you're going to have to deal with it. So, because the other thing that has been so important to me recently is gratitude, and it actually started with. Do you remember Chuck's friend that came to the Spring Koinonia?
Yes.
David. He's from Jamaica, and he said at one point that in Jamaica they have nothing And the people there are so, so grateful for everything that they have. And then here we have everything and nobody is thankful for it. And that, like, it was just a casual, like, he was making just like a casual comment, actually. I don't think he realizes even now that like hit me and how true it is. So anyways, I have been really wanting to be thankful and not like complaining about lack or things that I feel like I should have or I want to have, or anyways, that's just a rabbit trail, but that's what you made me think of, Nikki, is that I really want to be, even in situations where I feel like, I have nothing, I have something, and there's something to be thankful for. So a couple of months ago, Ange and Reese had talked about a trip to Tanzania, and to the City of Hope in Tanzania. And again, for people who know me, I am so about the nations. I love to travel. I love the peoples of the world. That's just so in my heart. And when they initially presented the idea, immediately it just made sense to me. Like, oh yeah, I want to go. And it was funny because then Reese came over to me and he was like, "So you're going with us, right?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Yeah." It was just one of those things. And then and I just remember even then I was like, Jesus. I really want to do this. Yeah. But I have no monies. And I just, it was one of those things where I was like, I know that I'm going to Tanzania in December. I know I have no money. Lord. How are we getting from here to there? And Diane, I know that you and I had talked about this because I remember at the one koinonia, Randy was like, "It's just money," and I remember just like
still pisses me off.
And in my spirit, I remember being like, "It's just money." like how do I get to that place? Like, what does that look like? So I was like, this is a challenge. This is an opportunity. I'm gonna figure out what this just money thing is all about. And so I had these grand schemes that I was going to pick up extra hours at work, or I was going to do different things.
Mm-hmm. And all the things you could do.
Yeah, all the things that I could do to make the money. And then with some circumstances at my job, things were very stressful and busy for several months where I was at max capacity and I had no ability to work overtime. Mm-hmm. I just was like, Julia, you will not be in a healthy place if you do more than what you're doing now. And so then I'm watching the clock and I'm not making any extra money that I thought I was going to make. And I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, I remember us talking about this now. Yeah.
I was like, all right. Well, this will be interesting to see what's going to happen. And, the time came for me to make my first deposit, and Ange and Reese were like, we can't really wait any longer. And I was like, no, I totally understand that, and I respect that. So I was like, I'm just gonna give you my initial deposit, and there's still time for miracles to happen. And so I put down my deposit, trusting that something would come through. Well, a week later, while I was at work, the VP came into our meeting with the therapist, and she was like, Julia, I need to talk to you. And I was like, uh-oh, I'm getting fired. Anyway, so I went up and I went to her office, and she was like, you're not in trouble. And I was like, all right. And she told me that... So I had completed some trainings through my job that one of our MCOs had. MCO is one of the insurance companies that works with us. They had actually funded my training, and so when that happened, and there were several other therapists who had done it, but they actually had moved on. Anyway, so I guess as a reward for me being the only therapist that completed the training and was still working there, they gave me a portion of the money. So, she hands me an envelope and she's like, we just wanted to share this with you, and I was like, oh, okay, great. And I was thinking, a little bit of money. And so I actually said to her, I was like, oh, like maybe this will help me work towards like completing my certification, because the training was towards a certification. I was like, maybe this will help me with that. And she like winked at me and she was like, I think that there'll be plenty in there. And I was like, like my eyes got real big. Awesome. And I was like, okay. And so I like went, I go out and I go to the copy room, like right around the corner, and I open this envelope, and it's the amount that I needed.
Are you serious?
That's the amazing. Exact amount that I needed. So there I am, like weeping in the copy room because I will never forget that moment where I just was.
That's amazing.
Knowing how loved I am, that he knew that's important to me and orchestrated a way that I could have the money and I didn't have to bend over backwards and do all the overtime work and still be able to go. I just felt so loved in that moment. It was amazing. So all of that to say that, so I have the money that I need for the trip, and I'm super excited about it. This will be my first trip to Africa.
I can't take my eyes off of the work of the Lord in your heart.
Yeah.
It's like I'm seeing him. It's incredible.
It is beautiful.
I've known you a while, and this is like the honor of my day to get to sit with you and to listen to what the Lord has done and what you've let him do in your life and in your heart. And I'm just so thankful that you're ours and that we're yours. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.